Last night, right before I went to bed, I got an email and the subject intrigued me. It said, "At a loss." And it was this woman who said she had literally just had a fight with her husband, and she gave him the play-by-play. Essentially, she asked him for help with the computer. He's much better at computers, she said, and so he told her, "Oh, you just have to do this." And so she questioned him, "Are you sure?" And he said, "Yes, you're not listening to me. All you have to do is this." And she continued to ask more clarifying questions, and he got really annoyed, and he's like, "It's simple enough for a third grader to do." Ugh, ouch. Well, so then she said she shot back and was like, "Is this how you would talk to your employees if you were training them on something?" And then she said she kind of made a parallel to him and his father, which didn't seem like it was a good connection to make. And then he followed back with, "You know what, whatever, you're always right, I'm always wrong," and he shut down. Now, she was like, "What do I do?" She's like, "He always lands on that statement, you're always right, I'm always wrong." And then he shuts down. And so what I sense from this is that there was a connection between the statement about the father and him shutting down. I first want to say, though, I think he was more in the wrong in this situation. I mean, from what I can tell from your email, if what you relayed was accurate, then your husband is far more in the wrong. But I've been thinking about that a lot lately. I'm like, how do we come to resolve in a conflict when somebody else is 70, 80, 90% at fault? You know, I think if we approach them as they're 90% at fault, we're never going to come to resolution or restoration. And one of the radical things that my parents teach is that if you've got two good-willed people here that are just on what my parents call the crazy cycle, there is a way to get off of the crazy cycle, but you have to assume goodwill about the person, and you have to get at the deeper issue of what's going on. It sounds like you guys are just comfortable with each other enough that you know how to make jabs that are hurtful. So what do? I mean, the things that your husband said he's questioning your intellect, he's snapping at you, and that's hurtful. And if this is the character of your husband, if he's constantly berating you and belittling you and he's just an evil dude, that's one thing. But if he's just a guy that had a long day and you had a long day and you just kind of went at it, my thought would be that the only way you can come to restoration is if you set aside the fact that maybe he's 80, 90% at fault and you go, what do I have to take ownership of here? And if I'm correct in my guess that it has something to do with you making a comment about his father and then him saying, "You're always right, I'm always wrong," that you can speak into that. One of the things that my parents teach is that the respect language is oftentimes huge for men, and they'll shut down if they feel like they're being dishonored or disrespected. If your husband has a terrible relationship with his father, or his father was a bad dude, and you make that parallel, he's going to think the one woman in his life, you, who he wants to admire him and look up to him and see him as a good quality man, you're now making this parallel with his father, and he's going to shut down. Just if you had a terrible mom and he's like, "You're being like Betty again," you know, you'd be like, "Ah, no, I'm not like Betty." And so there's a sensitivity, and if his dad was a bad dude, he has a vulnerability in that area. And so you, in your maturity, have the option to try to understand where he's coming from and just say, you know, I don't know how that fight got escalated so quickly, but is there anything that I did or can do in the future to not make you feel so dishonored in these situations? How can I approach you so that we don't react to one another? Again, he may be far more at fault, but a good-willed person who senses that you're honestly and authentically trying to understand their pain should soften. You also may want to just try and exit. If he's so irate and he's so fired up, sometimes when we leave somebody who's just so messed up and you have to leave them in their ish and they have to hear themselves, when you exit, they replay what just happened. And they're like, wow, I was really out of line. And then maybe it's later that you come back and you go, what happened earlier? How did that escalate? What can I do in the future to make you feel more comfortable in that situation? Again, it's not fair, but if you want to do something, I feel like it's trying to be the first one to move maturely and seek to understand the other person. And then hopefully he will soften enough and it will create the space for you to go, you know what, when you compare me to the intellect of a third grader, that is so hurtful. I hope you didn't mean it, but you're the one man in this world that I want to see me as X, Y, and Z. And when you say those things, it's hurtful to the core of my being. He will hear you more when you have first sought to understand him. And that's where I feel like you'll truly be empowered. Again, I'm not married, I'm single, but give that a try.
On the next Ask Joy, Joy buckles under the weight of responsibility.
Ready? Let's pretend.
Okay,
I'll just
got
hold
it
it from up here.
Okay, we're gonna go.
Up. Up.
Woo!
I'll turn the music off.
Doesn't somebody want to have children with me? I'm just kidding. If you're creepy, don't email me, please.